Well, I'm honored to have two of my good friends here today, two great officials, and we're going to have a great session today. Uh, Bill Westbrooks, say hello, Billy,
Hey, honored to be here, Ron.
and Todd Burchyett.
Hi, great to be here, even with Billy Westbrooks.
Well, you know, I quite frankly, Todd, I'm just going to say this right now because I want to be as honest as I can on this. Sue voted for him to come.
Okay, that was the final one.
Yeah, I was a negative. He was not coming. Sue said, "No, he's your friend. You go out to dinner with him. He'll do fine." So anyway, he'll do a hell of a lot better than he did that day when I was umpiring a baseball game of his, Todd, over at Maryville. You know, he played professional baseball, Westbrooks, played for the Kansas City organization. Is that right, Bill?
That's correct.
And so Bill's over there, and I'm umpiring. It's an amateur baseball league. Bill's back. You know, he's not in professional baseball anymore. He's on the mound. Oh, he's a big shot. And I'm umpiring third base. Guy comes to the plate. The guy's got a ponytail. It's coming way halfway down his back, and I'm laughing, and he's kind of smirking on the mound. And he throws a guy, I don't know what he threw him, but whatever he threw him ended up about 430 feet away. Oh, I'm laughing and he looks at me, and he's not happy with me, and I'm just laughing. I can't help it. So anyway, the next time up, this guy comes up again about in the fourth inning, and Todd, he hits one further, and I'm laughing. And then what happened? Did somebody get ejected in that game or something? Or was I working with that guy named Braden?
Right.
Tom-
well, it was a
Tom
close
Brady?
game, and the catcher got angry about a missed call and went off on the umpire, went off on Braden, and Braden threw him out. That turned the whole game around. We ended up winning by 1 run, I believe.
And we've seen that happen too often, haven't we? Sometimes, and you guys are both very good officials, and I'll tell you the big thing about these two guys, not only were they good officials, when I had my referee camps, Todd and Billy, Todd was as good an evaluator of basketball officials as anybody I've ever seen. He's just right down to the detail. And when I would have a camper talking to Todd after a game, and I see that camper kind of rolling his eyes like, "Oh, what are you telling me, Mr. Burchyett?" I was thinking, hey, guess what, buddy boy? You will never be in the MIAA. What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think they've had it figured out until they get there, and then they find out that there's a lot more to it. So.
Todd, I remember when you started officiating. Tell us a little bit about that. That was an awesome day, wasn't it?
Yeah, I remember. It says, I was doing. I always had like the thought after I played sports and stuff that I wanted to get into officiating, and I found you had a little clinic. It was you, Ed Schumer, at DeSmet High School, and it turned out to be just 3 of us there. And it really wasn't a like on the court refereeing games. It was more about philosophy and things like that. It was like mind blowing to me. It's like, oh, you just don't go running up here and act gyrating all over the place and blow your whistle and do all this stuff. It's like you have philosophy and things like that. It was like so eye opening. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, I still think that the best officials that I had the honor of working with over many years, the best officials were the guys who had some real good common sense.
Yeah.
What do you think, Billy?
Yeah, well, that was one of the principles of being a good official, to officiate with common sense. You can't adhere to the rules per se. Well, you held captive to the rules. You had to use a lot of sense. You had to learn the rules and interpret the rules, but then you had to use common sense when applying the rules.
Yeah. And I'm going to kind of jump around here, but Billy got into the Big 8 conference and the Missouri Valley Conference, and Billy, and I've told him this, so I'm not telling him anything today that we didn't talk about. Billy was refereeing the first game of, I think it was the first round. Am I correct?
That's correct.
It was Nebraska
And
Kansas. And an early in the game, Danny Nee started acting real silly for Nebraska and running up and down the floor and carrying on and acting silly. And Billy teed him. Perfect. I was sitting there because I had the next game, and I was sitting with Johnny Overby, who we all know is one of the greatest. And that guy, there was no, he wasn't going to sugarcoat anything, Johnny Overby. And boy, he's sitting next to me. He says, "Boy, look at Billy. Oh, boy." So anyway, Roy Williams, who, quite frankly, a great coach, great career. I refereed for a bunch of coaches over in Kansas. He would not be at the top of my food chain. Okay, this is as a coach, person. Not as a coach. Anyway, he really starts acting. And see, Billy was working with 2 veteran officials. And what happened, Billy, I know, was waiting for one of those guys to take care of Roy. And they didn't. And so he kept on Billy. And Billy, I know, listen, I was there when I was a young guy breaking in. Billy's like, I don't want to tee both these guys. I mean, come on, somebody bail me out. And those guys didn't. And it hurt Billy's career. It really did. And you know what? The 2 guys who were on that game, personally, I lost a lot of respect for both of them because they didn't take care of business. They were letting their partner, just get thrown underneath the bus, and they just kind of ignored it. What do you think, Todd?
Yeah,
You've seen it, haven't you?
Oh yeah, and I call that rough and safe. Sometimes you have to be careful, especially when you're coming up as a young official. And I, with what I do now too, I try to, let them know that you need to not wait on them. If you don't need to wait and see what they're going to call hand checking or post play. If you've got those first calls, you got what got you there is what's going to keep you there. You can't change that.
Yeah. On a lighter note, let's. I think both you guys were in the car with me and Jeff Burke.
Oh Lord,
right?
Many times, probably.
Right.
No, we were going to Central Missouri.
Central Missouri.
And Jeff Burke. Now listen, I love Jeff Burke. He's a sweet guy. Jeff Burke would listen to you and then forget what you told him, which is fine. There's a lot of people like that. I was like that when I was in school with my teachers. So we're going down to Central Missouri, and it was one of the first games that Burke's going to work in the MIAA, it was his first game. And I tell him in the car, I said, now listen, Jeff, Kim Anderson, Kim's going to get on you. He knows Billy, respects him. He knows Todd.
Right.
He doesn't know who you are. He's going to mess with you. Do me a favor. Do yourself a favor. When he starts on you, do not, under any conditions, get into a conversation with him. Yes, sir. Okay, we drive on you. We get to down to Warrensburg. The guys go up. They get dressed. We go. I sit down. I'm watching the game. The game's not 2 minutes old, and Kim Anderson is just ripping him one up and down. And what does Burke do? He's going to go over and explain to him. And you ever been in, I know we never have, but you've heard about guys in quicksand? This kept sinking. Well, Burke was just...
It was like a moth to the flame.
So what did you do, Todd? What did you 2 guys, you remember what you did with Burke when that happened?
Well, I remember trying to get him to, I remember talking to him, I think at a media timeout, and just like, you just stopped talking to him. And he's like, oh, and he had this kind of high-pitched voice, and he's like, oh, I don't think it was so bad. And I'm like, dude.
One of the things about Burke, though, that was amusing, it didn't bother him.
No.
It didn't bother him. He would officiate his game, and he was not a bad official.
Hey, he was a good official.
Yeah.
If Burke had ever had the people skills that you 2 guys have, if he had ever had the ability to deal with coaches and players like you 2 guys, Burke would have been really successful.
Right.
Burke had great judgment.
Yeah. I always said that if he lost the ability to speak, it would have been better if they just told him he was a mute, and then he couldn't.
Yeah. Well, Burke always had a little bit of a problem with women because if a gal looked at him, like smiled, he would say, "Hey, I think she likes me." I said, "Oh, okay, maybe she was just being polite." But anyway, that's another story for another day.
Yeah, that might be a completely different podcast.
Yeah, we could have a long podcast on Burke, but I love Burke.
Yeah,
and he was a loyal guy. When I had the MIAA and I had the SLIAC, he was one of the guys when you needed him for a camp to come work.
Yeah,
he was one of those guys.
Yeah, he was a workhorse.
Yeah, he was a workhorse. Sometimes at those camps, you don't have enough officials, and you need a guy to maybe referee 3-4 games a day. Hot weather. No problem. So, yeah, he's one of my favorite guys. So let's talk a little bit about Billy in the MIAA, and I've told people this, and I've told you this too. You and Will Lyon were two guys that anytime I had a big game, a game that really needed two strong officials who would take care of business, it was you and Will Lyon. I really didn't give a damn who the third guy was because we didn't even need a third guy. What do you think, Todd?
Yeah. And, the thing is about when you have that reputation and stuff like that, the coaches knew what they could and couldn't do. And honestly, they were at that point. If they wanted a technical foul, it was something they wanted. They weren't getting it because of behavior and stuff. So they knew what, to do.
Well, see, Will Lyon, in my opinion, he was one of the best officials that I ever had on my staff. And he didn't make it. And I'm going to tell you exactly why he didn't make it. He wasn't a bullshitter, and he wasn't going to kiss any guy's ass to get in their league. He'd go to their camps, and after the camps, if he thought that he was not given a fair shot, and most times you're not given a fair shot, they want you back the next year. He said, hell, I'll just be happy in the MIAA, and I'll do my job, and I'll do it well. And he didn't chase the dog or chase the tail. And let's talk a little bit about those camps. Todd, you're involved with it right now. By the way, before I go any further, you see Todd, and you see that he used to have a lot of hair on his head, and
I could get you pictures.
But what a guy, and one of the bravest guys that I know. Todd, since 2020, has been a fighter and a survivor of pancreatic cancer, and he said his hair was falling out, and he was getting a lot of hair here, there, and everywhere. He said, hell, and quite frankly, he looks a hell of a lot better without hair than with hair. What do you think, Billy?
Well, we always said we were brothers from another mother. Now we really are.
You're
because
not
we both have no hair.
He was considerably older.
Take your hat off so we can see it.
Make sure it's the same dome.
It's a cue ball.
Yeah.
But let me go back, Ron, just a little bit. You were talking about the MIAA staff. We had a very strong staff, and really, the three officials out there were all very competent. And, I think that was due to our commissioner and you, because you insisted that go out and call your game. Don't worry about the coaches. We got your back. So we didn't feel like we were on a short string if we had a coach that was angry at us and wanted us out the league. That wasn't happening.
No.
So
when I got hired, I was with Dave Phillips at a camp that he had at the University of Kansas, and I was there as an instructor with Dave, and I was refereeing for him at the time. So at the University of Kansas, I'm standing around, and I didn't know who this guy was, and this man walked up to me. He said, "Hi, Ron. I'm Ken Jones. Would you like to be our supervisor?" Yeah, sure. But let me ask you, what are the parameters? He was a good man, and I said, if I get the job, who do I answer to? Do I answer to the coaches? We know what high school sports were like.
Mhm.
Do I answer to the athletic director? Do I answer to the president of those schools? Ron, you answer to the commissioner. That's me. Nobody else has a word to say about you. I said, sir, that's great. And let me tell you a great story about Ken Jones. So I loved Ken Jones, and he was getting up in years, and that's why he hired me, because what happened, he was a commissioner, and he was also the supervisor of basketball and football. Too much work. The conference was expanding. The competition was great. So Ken Jones calls me one night. This is about the second year maybe, or whatever, third year that I'm working for him. And he says, Ron, he said, I'm going to get fired. I said, Mr. Jones, what do you mean you're going to get fired? I've been around forever. He said, one of the presidents, and I won't mention the school, it's not that important right now, but he said, one of the presidents is after me. And he's got enough presidents on his side to get rid of me and look for a new commissioner. I said, well, Mr. Jones, I'll be honest with you. I was pretty young still then, and I was kind of, screw it, hey, man, that's the way they're going to treat you. I'm out of here too. So I told him, I said, they fire you. I said, I'll walk out the door with you. No, Ron, no. I said, Ken, I'm telling you, I said, the day they fire you, you just tell them that Ron's leaving too. So about a month later, I get a phone call from Ken Jones. He says, Ron, I'll never forget it. Ron, there is a God. I said, there is a God. What do you mean? He said, the president was caught embezzling money. He's gone. They fired him the next morning. And all the other guys are off my ass now. So I'm good. So, stand up for principles, man. Stand up for principles. It'll work out for you.
It will.
And I would have walked out with him. No question about it.
I remember that, Ron. And then Ken Jones was replaced by another great supervisor, Ralph McFillin.
Oh, Ralph McFillin. Ralph was the commissioner of the Metro Conference, Louisville, Memphis State, big time. Well, when the Metro Conference got together with the, what was it called? The Conference USA.
Conference USA. Or
No,
was it the Great Midwest?
No,
Was it the Great Midwest?
it was a Metro and the Great Midwest Conference.
Midwest.
When they got together and merged, Dale Kelly was the supervisor in the Metro. They kept him. Okay, they had to kind of balance it. And then Mike Slive, who went on to become the commissioner of the Southeast Conference, Mike Slive became the commissioner of the new Conference USA, and Dave Phillips got fired. So Dale Kelly, Mike Slive. So Phillips tells the story. He knew that Slive dumped him. So Slive calls Phillips on the phone. He says, Dave, he said, I didn't have much of blah, blah, I didn't have anything to do with it. And, when I'm in Chicago, I'd really like to come and watch you with a White Sox game, And Phillips says to me, he says, yeah, you'll be at a White Sox game, not with me. But anyway, that was a bad deal. And Ralph said that right before that, because I had him on a podcast, Ralph said that right before that, there was almost a 16-team conference put together. And then some of the football playing didn't want it in the bat, so it didn't work out. But Ralph McFillin was another guy who was great. And Billy Westbrooks, here we go.
Again, right?
Here we go. We're at Emporia, Kansas. I go to the game with Westbrooks. We drove down in a...
I think, Todd, were you on that game?
I was on that game.
You were on the game, too.
Todd was on
Yeah,
that game.
and they're playing Washburn.
Yep.
So Bob Chipman, who was not well received by any officials, Washburn coach, he decides he's going to go running down the sideline and raise hell with Billy, and he runs into Billy. Well, that's just automatic. I mean, that's, you run into an official, make contact, and Billy ejects him. So fast forward, Ralph McFillin calls me on the telephone. He says, Ron, can you be on a three-way call? I'm going to have these lawyers from Washburn,
which is a law school.
Yeah,
they
got a law school. They're I think Ralph had suspended Chipman for 2 games, and they're appealing it. And they're going to appeal it.
Right.
So here's a phone call. The phone rings. Hello, yeah, this is Ralph. Yeah, yes, sir. Mr. McFillin, and they go through the whole lawyer, the lawyer this and lawyer that. And it was an accident. He really didn't mean to, and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, these lawyers are talking this lawyer talk, and I'm sitting there listening to it. And here's how it ends. Gentlemen, do you have anything else to say? No, Commissioner. Nothing will change. Goodbye. And he is my hero. Ralph McFillin was my hero. Wasn't he a great guy?
Yeah, he really was.
Yeah,
and he did some great stuff for that conference.
Yeah,
I mean,
he really
he took
did.
it to he took
to the next
that
level.
league to where they're it was probably one of the first Division II leagues that had like a central. They played at the historic municipal auditorium where the NCAA tournament was for years, and just elevated all that.
And
stuff.
he shared this with me. So Washburn, of course, didn't they were against it.
Right.
See, they wanted to play at home. See, because they're probably the best team in the league at the time. So if you won your conference, then you get the home advantage. Game 1, game 2, game 3.
Yeah.
If you keep winning, you never have to play on the road. So Washburn, they were all supposed to sell tickets. Ralph told me. So he said Washburn wouldn't sell a ticket. They wouldn't sell one ticket to the tournament. So he said, all I did is I fined him afterwards and I got my money. Anyway, that's great stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was outstanding.
Go ahead, Todd. What do you got?
No, I was just going to say, yeah, and that was, I remember just like him being such a supporter of what we would do. And actually, I'll tell you, you may not remember this. He had been hired, had not actually started yet, but I had a game it might have been Northeast Missouri. I don't know if it was Truman State. and you and him went. And this is, how long ago that was. There was no cell phones. We didn't do things online and all that. And there was a mix-up where the men. I can't remember if
The
they went
women's
to the
game at
yeah,
Central Missouri.
the men's. Yeah, the women went to they were supposed to be switched, and the guys that were supposed to switch, everybody went to the wrong place. So the guys that were supposed to come there, and and of course, this is the first time you're meeting him, and you're getting all these phone calls and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
and what happened was, and Jerry Hughes. Listen, Jerry Hughes was the athletic director at Central Missouri, and without a doubt, you'll never have a better athletic director at I don't care what level.
He was first
That
class.
guy just knew how to run a program. He knew how to make money.
Division I status.
And he would raise hell. Oh, he would call me on the phone screaming and yelling about the referees, Jerry. He was never screaming and yelling, and I'd listen to him, and and I'd say, Jerry, I was at that game. I said, you're telling me things that I just didn't see what you're seeing. Oh yeah, there you go. And then about a day or two later, he'd call me like nothing ever happened. And we'd go on, and we had some good camps at
Right.
Central Missouri,
Yeah.
didn't we?
Yeah.
It was great. And speaking of Kim Anderson, Kim finally got a chance to go to the University of Missouri, and they really sandbagged him.
Yeah,
They sandbagged him.
Yeah,
It was
they,
a
they set
terrible
him
thing.
up to fail.
They set him
honestly.
up to fail, and he was a great Missouri basketball player, and just a great human being. And let's talk about here, Todd. How about Tommy Smith?
Oh my God, yeah.
These are the coaches in the MIAA. Tommy Smith, he was a head coach at Valparaiso, and
Tommy
then
was a good coach.
we had Lynn Nance at SBU. Lynn Nance was the head coach at Iowa State. David Moe, who came from Colorado, and David, I think, was related to Doug Moe.
Yeah, that was his father.
That was his dad. And Doug Moe and Larry Brown, they started together in the ABA. They worked in that.
And did they not also? Did they play together in North Carolina? Maybe.
I think they might have played together at North Carolina.
I think that was their original connection.
I'm going to see. There's a few other guys on here that I want to talk a little bit about. Gene Bartow's nephew, Tommy Bartow, was at UMSL.
Coach Iba.
Coach Iba, who
Iba.
passed away, and Gene Iba. I'll tell you a cute story about Gene Iba. When he was coaching at Baylor, I had a game at Baylor, and a guy that we all know was sitting on the bench there with Gene Iba. He was like his second or third assistant, and he's gonna really show me, and he's yelling at me and screaming at me, this assistant coach. And I go over there and I said to Gene Iba, I said, you tell that, and I won't use the word that I use, but you tell that asshole down there to knock it off. I'll listen to you, but he's not going to say another word. And that guy happened to be our friend, Kelvin Lee.
Kelvin Lee. From Chaminade and St. Mary's and U City, and now he's in Florida, right?
And
He's in Florida.
listen, guys, Kelvin Lee, think about this. Think about the guys that he's coached.
Yeah.
Kelvin Lee, when he was at Chaminade, he had Justin Tatum, and he made that kid the player he is today. And I'm going to tell you why. The kid came over there. He was about 6'8" already when he was a freshman, and Kelvin Lee did not play him underneath the basket. He gave him the ball and put him out in front and said, "You're going to run this team." And he became a ball handler and a passer and an out-court shooter. And I've always said to Kelvin, I said, do you ever send a little text message or something to Tatum to send you a little bit of that money? And then he had Beal.
Yeah, David Lee before. David Lee was his first one.
David Lee was his first one.
Yeah.
And Kelvin, every place Kelvin Lee's gone to, he's won.
Yeah.
You know why?
And places that didn't traditionally win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know why Kelvin Lee won? He could flat-ass coach.
Yeah.
He could coach. And I was over at U City. He had a real good team, and they were playing, one of the magnet schools in the city that's really good, Billy?
Most like Lift for Life or
Like
Cardinal Ritter.
Yeah, they were playing Cardinal Ritter.
Cardinal Ritter.
And U City was beating Cardinal Ritter by 8 to 10 points at the end of the third quarter. And U City had a point guard who was not what I would ever want my point guard to be. He was talented, but he played with the ball way too much, and he tried to do too many silly things. And I just kept sitting there thinking, and Ritter beat him. That kid turned the ball over 4, 5, 6 times in that fourth quarter on silly behind the back pass, just trying to make passes that
Yeah.
they're winning by 10. Well, Ritter went down to Columbia, won the state championship. U City was better. So Kelvin never got angry with that kid. I watched him when the game was over, patted the kid on the back. I called him the next day. And I said, Kelvin, I said, what? He said, Ron, he said he just got out of sorts and it happened. He said, but he was a good player for me and a good kid. And he played hard all the time. And he was not going to throw that kid underneath the bus. I don't know if I would have been that good.
Yeah, but he had such a great way of building up programs and stuff. Just a really good coach, and I think isn't he back in Florida where he is from
Where he
originally? Or
started. I
something?
think
Yeah.
he's back at his alma mater.
Well, he was going back to his alma mater.
Yeah.
And in the summer, things didn't work out. Okay. So he just, doing some things down there besides that, but he just got hired at a real good high school
I
down
saw
there.
that.
And
Okay, cool.
he's starting to, and those kids are lucky, whoever's getting them.
Absolutely.
And I think the problem that he had at his alma mater, if you can imagine, he's in the Hall of Fame, the school that he went back to. He was going to end his career really.
Right.
What a great way to end your career, at your alma mater. But he said there was a football coach and another coach who he said I could tell they were sandbagging me from day one. I might have been there 50 years ago, but they weren't going to
What
buy
have you
into
done for
me.
me lately?
Yeah, they weren't going to buy into me.
Hey, Ron, I know we got a short time, I guess, but you and I have had conversations before, and I love talking to you about the state of officiating currently. Just share that with us again. Share that with.
Well, to me, I think that there are. Well, first of all, I think the camps are they're good to a certain point. I don't think they're teaching at these camps. I think they're having these guys. I'm not talking about maybe what you do, Todd, but
Yeah. No.
these guys, they run up and down the floor. They got 3 guys sitting there, pencil and paper, big shots, because they're already Division I officials, and they're deciding, in a 12-minute half of a camp game if this guy's good enough to make it or not. I don't think that they're teaching these guys how to handle coaches and players. I don't think. I'll be honest with you. I was at a camp for Dale Kelly and a guy by the name of John DeBrow. Let me tell you, this is unbelievable. John DeBrow was a pretty good official. And back in the day, if you got on the right crew, and he was on Hank Nichols' crew, well, if you got on the right crew, you moved on as a crew in the NCAA tournament. You didn't move on, like we do now. If you're good, you go and another guy. It's a crew. So John DeBrow ends up working a national championship game, and it's because he's with Hank Nichols, but he didn't screw the game up or anything. He did his job. Well, anyway, he had all kind of problems. His knees went out. He got out of officiating, and he started seeing how much money you could make officiating. So he decided he's going to make a comeback. He was living out in California, and there was a camp. I think it was at
Was it Arkansas State? I was there.
at Arkansas State, and I'm an evaluator, and I'm sitting with these 2 guys who think they're big-time referees, sitting with me. And these 2 guys couldn't referee ducks to water. But anyway, John DeBrow's refereeing the game. And I have tears in my eyes. I'm feeling bad for him. He can't run. You know what I mean? He can't run. I mean, he's got these artificial knees, but he's doing the best he can. And he's there for one reason. He's probably struggling a little bit financially, and he probably needs a little bit of money. So these 2 guys say, man, we're gonna have to. I said, I'm gonna tell you something. You 2 guys don't know anything about who that guy is. And I told him, I said, you're not gonna say a frickin' word to him after this game. Nothing. Because he worked the national championship game. When you work your first national championship game, then you can talk to him about officiating, but not until then. But that's the problem. Too much politics, too many guys who are ready to throw another guy under the bus and so forth. Billy, I love the way you refereed. I love the way Todd refereed. Todd had bad knees, so he couldn't run like Billy. But Todd knew how to handle players and coaches. Todd knew however he did it, to get in position that when he blew his whistle, he was looking at the play from the right angle. No, he wasn't a sprinter. He wasn't going to be the fastest guy on the court. But that's my thing, Billy. I think, and my goodness, go to the monitor over and over. So officials don't have to worry about a call they make anymore. They make a call, and boom, we'll go look at the monitor, and they can change it or reverse it. Did you have that luxury when you refereed?
No, we didn't. We had it towards the end where but the monitor was up like in left field somewhere. Yeah. We had to climb the stairs to go up and look at the monitor.
Well, no, you didn't. Well, Tom Savella climbed the stairs, not Billy Westbrooks. But yeah, it's just a whole different game today. I broke in. Listen, I'll tell you guys a good story. One of the first 2 years I was in the Big Eight, I was, I came back. I just refereed 3 MIAA championship games in a row. I thought I was the end all, man. I was the greatest referee that ever walked, and I got hired in the Big Eight. And man, I was a duck out of water. I didn't know from nothing. 2-man. Who am I working with? Well, I'm working one night with Irv Brown, next night with Ben Dreith, the next night with Dave Phillips, Jim Bain. I'm working with the elite, and thank God I'm working with the elite because I'm not doing nothing. I'm just a duck out of water. And at the end of the second year, they dumped me. And I got lucky. I got a second chance. And the reason I got dumped, I was told by Bernie Sagall, who I respect, even though he fired me, you got to take care of coaches. You got to take care of coaches, Ron. That's why you can't referee on this level if you can't take care of coaches. And a veteran official makes a call and you know that he's wrong, you have to be able to go in and tell him. And if he comes to you and you've made a call and you know you're right, you have to tell him, thanks for the information, but I'm not changing it. You know what I mean? And those two things, I figured, man, I'm not a Rhodes Scholar, but if those are the two things I need to do, I'm good. So when Johnny Overby hired me, he told me those two things again. Ronnie, you can work for me forever. Any one of those things go south, you're leaving. You know how that guy talked.
Yep.
What do you think, Bill?
Yes, correct. One of the things you talk about Johnny Overby, but coming up as a young official, and you and I've had this conversation, we had good mentors. Yeah. We had you and a lot of other guys that really taught us the principles and the common sense of officiating. And that really did a lot for my career as I was moving up.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because let's go back in time. And gee whiz, in baseball, Johnny Coburn, who was in charge of the St. Louis Umpires Association, he had confidence in me and gave me a whole bunch of games. Ray Cliff, he was a baseball coach at Cleveland High School. Jules Blanky, he was a baseball coach at McKinley. I'm a young kid, finally got a varsity game. I'm working the bases. I think the game was over at Sublet Park, and I go over there, and I'm sitting in my car, I got my stuff on. All of a sudden, both those guys are icons, Jules Blanky and Ray Cliff. They come up to me, and they say, "What's going on here?" I said, "Well, I'm waiting for my partner." "Well, it looks like your partner's not going to show up. Put your gear on and get your ass out there. I'm working it by myself." So I always felt that working behind a pitcher, you cannot call balls and strikes. So I figured, you know what? I'm gonna call balls and strikes, and I was young. I'm gonna bust my ass every time there's a ground ball or something. I'm gonna get my butt down to close to first base I can, and second base. Well, I work like a mule. And I'm gonna tell you something. When that game was over, I don't even remember who won. Both of them came over to me and said, "We'll make sure you work."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You get the respect of the coaches is amazing.
Those two guys.
Great, fantastic.
Those two guys, I mean, they were iconic guys. So, there's always somebody who's going to help you in your career.
Right. And you never know who's watching or who's going to be impressed with you, that's going to make that difference. You can't take a night off.
No. Well, Todd, tell me a little bit about the Southeast Conference right now and your job with the women.
Yeah, so I'm assistant coordinator for the SEC Consortium. We have like 7 leagues that we do. Part of what I do is I'm in charge of a lot of the training. I deal with the coaches, with the clips that come in. Every game's televised, no matter what league now. So the coaches can send 10 clips in. I look at the clips. We answer the coaches. Sometimes I escalate that to the as a learning tool to the referees and stuff. But I kind of got involved in women's because when you first were a coordinator back in the day, you did both men's and women's. So I had a lot of relationships with females or guys that were also working on the women's side. And when I retired, I got this call out of the blue from a referee, Missy Brooks, said, "Hey, there's some people looking for things, and we got this new coordinator in the SEC. She needs some help. Hooked me up," and it's just sort of morphed into that. And there's a lot of differences between what they do on the men's side, the women's side. The women's side is much more structured on trying to be equal on the calls and stuff like that. The men's side, I feel, is a little more. If the coordinator likes you, you can kind of do what you want to do. There's a little less science, a little more old boys school, whereas we have a little bit of structure and science that goes into officiating.
Well, guys, I guess, I do have to wrap this up. But before I wrap it up, I want to thank you two guys, not just for being here today, but for being great friends, long lifetime friends. And we've all had a lot of fun.
Yes.
We've had a lot of fun in the studio.
Great fun. Great.
We've had a lot of fun
laughs.
in some taverns.
Not me.
Well, Billy, I got to wrap this up because I'm not going to get involved with the taverns you go to. But anyway, listen, this has been a wonderful experience for me, and we're going to have this podcast every week, and we're going to honor the greats of the past, people who should be remembered in this city. We forget them too often. Hey, guys, thanks a lot. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Ron, I
Thanks a lot.
appreciate it. Appreciate coming out for you.